Hey, today I'm introducing my midterm speech, so I'm going to go ahead and dive in right here. Solomon was a man who was born of David. Uh, Solomon was the second child, but was first in line to the throne after David. The Lord promised David that Solomon would reign as king. Solomon is known for writing Proverbs, Song of Solomon, and also some of Ecclesiastes. The reason why he is the most underrated to me is because he was right after David. David was and is a highly regarded prophet because he was before Solomon and seemed to have a more known victory. He slayed Goliath, and also he ruled the kingdom of Israel. Also, he overcame some of the defeats in his life. He was um, he was he was accused on account of murder. David did murder. He murdered Bathsheba's husband and sent him into the army. And whenever he sent him into the army, uh, he David's army man got killed. And so uh, we you know we look at David, and he's very well known. And then we see Solomon, and Solomon is someone who comes right after David and is a son and is an heir to the throne. The Lord actually anoints him as king. So Solomon, he didn't really have a victory like David did. David killed Goliath when he was a nobody, but Solomon came after David, and David was already anointed king, and he was seen as king. So whenever Solomon came up after him, it was like, oh, okay, so he's just a king. He's going to do the same thing as David. He's you know because there was no growth, there didn't really seem like he excelled. He um, Meaning that because there was no increase, it didn't really seem like much to or that's why you could say that he is the most underrated. So Solomon, as a son, seemed as if he was under David's shadow. Jesus Christ. Although David had victories in his life, so did Solomon. Solomon was told to build the first temple in Jerusalem and obeyed the plans that the Lord had made for him. This shows that Solomon was obedient in his first acts as an anointed king. The temple was used for the believers in the time and period that they were in. It was used for those who believed in Jesus Christ. The most important thing about Solomon was his wisdom. Wisdom is said to be very profitable, and he ended up getting the blessing of wisdom and the gift of wisdom. His wisdom was far beyond that of any of the Old Testament prophets. 1 Kings 10:13 says King Solomon was greater in riches and wisdom than all the other kings of the earth. And some would argue that it would pertain to that period in time only, but I believe that God is speaking truth, and whenever he says that all other kings of the earth, that means all kings, the kings in the past and the kings in the future, um, other than Jesus. So, or not then, but his wisdom was so prized that even the Queen of Sheba came to visit him. The Queen of Sheba came to seek his wisdom. His wisdom was something that a lot of people didn't really um, didn't have, and he was able to talk about nature and to talk about birds and how it related to the gospel. And so you know in the book of Proverbs, a verse says that the fear of the Lord is the hatred of evil, and the fear of the Lord was the beginning of wisdom with God. to be wise in God's sight must have been something that was very astonishing, because if you are called wise in God's eyes, then you must be doing something right. And he was called wise. He was wise. He was the most wise in the whole earth. And so, if he was wise, imagine the conversations that he had with God, and the knowledge that he had with God, and not the knowledge, but the truth and the victory that he had with God. So God was able to manifest his glory through him, and because of this, Solomon is the most underrated character.